That Hall of Fame speech, that whole ceremony, holy crap. It started off with Trish inducting Lita, and I like Trish's speech because these speeches need to be sort of funny and get the crowd involved. I think that's what Trish did really well. She also gave a nice bit of info saying that Lita is the godmother of her baby. I didn't know they were that close. I knew they were close, but wow, that's pretty close. So Lita comes out, and this is funny, because I actually thought that she wasn't going to have much to say. Which again is funny because clearly she did have a lot to say. The reason why I didn't think she would is because I noticed, or at least I sort of thought, throughout her career, she was never really a talker. There wasn't too many moments where you saw Lita come out and give a great promo in the ring, or I don't have that many like catchphrases that Lita said that come to mind. She gave a lot of stories. She talked about how she went to Mexico and tried to figure out where to start wrestling, lucha libre, and yeah, it did go on for a while, I will admit, because I like the content. I love especially the part where she talked about how she met Rey Mysterio and Arn Anderson and how they were in the crowd, and she was like, I owe you two a Miller Lite, and she brought it out and they had a toast, and like that was all very cool to see her, or at least to hear her beginning story in wrestling and have it sort of come full circle like that. All of that was awesome. The referencing that she did to Kane, Edge, she even mentioned Snitsky. She mentioned Team Extreme, but they didn't get too much into actual Matt and Jeff Hardy. What are you going to do? The only thing that made me nervous about it was I was like, okay, she's going on for like 45 minutes. Are we going to have time for the rest of the inductees? And see, that's why I will say there's too many inductions in 1 year. They had like 6 or 7 people this year. If they had kept it down to 4 or 5, then you could have had these people come out and talk for as long as they want. I would have welcomed that even more. And she deserves that moment. She made a good point when she said something to the effect of how her whole career almost felt like a roast. Not like she didn't have any good moments, but especially how the last time that we saw her with Crime Time and how they sold her panties and stuff to the crowd, and it was just probably the worst send-off you could ever give anyone, let alone a diva. So she deserved a night to truly bask in her glory. We got DDP inducting Jake the Snake Roberts, and DDP, who said it was his 58th birthday. Wow, he does not look that old at all. DDP Yoga clearly is not only working for those people, but him as well. And he also had a good story about Jake, who had lived with him, and the whole story on the snake escaping in the house and Kimberly freaking out. I loved all that. Jake gave the most heart-wrenching, emotional speech probably ever. You know, there was some moments where it got really dark. And a friend of mine texted me and said, wow, way to bring the show down, Jake. And I just thought, okay, I get if some people think that this is too sort of dark and serious when he talked about how he wanted to commit suicide and all that. But that was real. That came from a real emotional place. And I appreciated that Jake went to that level to tell us exactly what he was feeling, you know, and to let maybe anyone who didn't already know, because yeah, I know most of this stuff, but I'm sure there's some people who didn't know the ups and downs of Jake the Snake's career. For some God-forsaken reason, Hornswoggle just starts coming out, screaming, interrupting the king, and then El Torito, the bull, comes out, and they're chasing each other around the stage, and the bull hits King in the balls, and I'm like, this isn't the time or the place for this. I get that it got really dark with the Jake speech and maybe they wanted to lighten the mood up. I completely understand that, but fuck. Couldn't there have been a different way to do it? Later on with Wade Barrett, that's a way to sort of lighten the mood up or to do some cool on-screen wrestling character stuff. Not this crap. Mr. T. I'm of two minds about this speech. There's one half of me that says this is the worst speech that has ever been made for any Hall of Fame induction, or probably for anything. The worst speech ever. Because, and look, I'm not begrudging the guy for loving his mother. Of course, I love my mother. If I were to be fortunate enough to win some type of achievement or have a moment to give a speech like that, I would thank my mom, in a sentence. But by God, did he have the whole speech? Did it all have to be about his mom? Was his mom being inducted? I don't think so. I get it. One line, even 2 lines. But this guy went on for over 30 minutes. It felt like 45 minutes of just nothing but his mother. Nothing but his mom. But then again, probably mostly thanks to the crowd, the audience that was there, the speech is now infamous, and it will be the most talked about, insane, crazy speeches that I've ever heard, especially in wrestling. Thankfully, Kane comes out and gives Mr. T the death stare to basically get off the stage. And yeah, Mr. T, he felt bad. He kept saying, I'm sorry, and then he just walked off. But dude, how did you not know that you were going on for too long about the same subject? Your mother. I get it. Kane then comes back out and he inducts Paul Bearer into the Hall of Fame, which I didn't even know that Kane was going to be the guy that was inducting him. Great speech, because he was informative. He gave a lot of things I didn't even know at all about Paul Bearer's career. And I loved when he said that the Kane and Undertaker feud is definitely the greatest feud of all time, which I agree. And a lot of that, a huge part of that, has to do with Paul Bearer. And his sons came out to accept the award, and they were quick about it. The Undertaker coming out in full character and paying tribute to Paul Bearer was great. I wasn't expecting it. And I even questioned it was cool to see Kane induct him, but The Undertaker seemed more appropriate. However, you don't really probably want to see Undertaker come out and break character and just start talking like a regular guy. If you're going to have Undertaker pay tribute to Paul Bearer, that's how you do it. Kevin Nash comes out to induct Razor Ramon. His first line of quoting the Bible I thought was hilarious because, it seemed at least like a dig on Mr. T. Yes, Mr. T did take a moment and prayed during his speech. Of course, Razor Ramon comes out, and somebody told me today that they thought he looked bad, and I'm not saying he looked like how he did 20 years ago, of course, but compared to the last time I'd seen Scott Hall before this guy looked like $1 million. Last time I saw him, he looked like a train wreck. He was bloated. His hair was completely gray. It just kind of put it more in perspective of how much older he got, and just you could tell he was, I don't know if it was drugs or alcohol or a combination of the two. He looked horrible, and it looked like he wasn't going to be alive for another year. His speech was one of the ones I was looking forward to the most, kind of. Warrior for the unpredictability factor, but Razor Ramon, he's had such an up and down career, so hasn't Jake the Snake, but Razor, I thought he really did deserve it, but he was always somebody that I didn't think ever would, because of the type of career that he led for himself. So that was great. A little disappointing that they seemingly cut him off. You could tell he had a couple more things to say and they just played his music. But it was worth it for the moment where the Clique came out. You see Nash, Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, who I hope he's off drugs now because he doesn't look like it. And Triple H, because Triple H wasn't in his seat for the Paul Bearer induction, so I thought something happened because of the whole Mr. T thing. I read reports that Vince McMahon was pissed backstage. I don't blame him. So I didn't know what was going on, why Triple H wasn't out there. But then he came back out for that, so that was cool. Now, Carlito, Primo, and Epico all come out to induct. I didn't think Epico was the son of Carlos Colon. Maybe the King messed that up. But they induct Carlos Colon, and seeing Carlito was awesome because I hadn't seen him in years, but I loved his little dig at WWE where he said how they told him, or they told them how, oh yeah, we have these big inductions, let's just stick the colognes right in the middle, right before the main attraction. And oh yeah, you only have like 5 minutes. It's like he never left. I loved it. That was great that he doesn't work there anymore, so why not be real for a minute? I'm not hugely familiar with Carlos Colon. I've heard about him running his own promotion in Puerto Rico. Obviously, I heard that he made himself like a 20-something time world champion down there. The Bruiser Brody story, and how Bruiser was murdered in that promotion, and that maybe something was done as far as setting him up or covering up who did it. And then Carlos supposedly using that death in a storyline years later. Yeah. Ouch, right? That's something that you probably never want to talk about, especially for his induction. And then the last half of it, he just spoke in Spanish, and I didn't really understand a word he said. Subtitles would have been nice, but we didn't get that. Now, Linda McMahon inducting the Ultimate Warrior, and I didn't realize at first when I heard she was inducting him, I thought that's a random and weird choice. But then when she told how much interaction she had with the Warrior, how he demanded to directly speak to her as far as when it came to business, I was like, oh, I didn't realize they were that close. This makes sense. Warrior comes out with his 2 daughters, and at first he was very sort of calm and sort of played it straight. He at least made it seem like he wasn't going to get controversial like we all were hoping. He said self-destruction. He said, you know what, I'm not going to talk about that DVD. So I kind of thought, okay, this isn't going to be as sort of crazy as I thought. But then the more he talked, and he did talk for a good while, it got crazy. And he just sort of started ranting. It's almost like he couldn't help himself but to sort of be pissed about that self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD. And I don't blame the guy. Honestly, I'm at the age where I'm 25. So when I started watching wrestling, I'd say the mid to late 90s is when I started. So I wasn't hugely familiar with the Warrior. I'd heard of him, I'd seen stuff of him, but I didn't really follow his career, obviously. So usually the way how I got to know wrestlers from the 80s and early 90s was those DVDs. When I got that DVD, they trashed the holy fucking shit out of them. And when I saw that, I said, wow, so I guess the Warrior was overrated. I guess he was an asshole. And I guess he didn't deserve the career that he got. That's the impression I got from that DVD, because that's the impression they wanted to give out, WWE. So for years, I kind of had that thought of the Warrior, you know? Then all of a sudden, he gets inducted, and now everyone's glowing about the guy and how awesome he was. So yeah, now I realize there's 2 sides to a story, and clearly I'm going to get Warrior's new DVD and hear him talk about his career, more possibly the truth, because that really upsets me that WWE did that to him. And then it's like, hey, can you be in the Hall of Fame and be the headliner? And you deserve it. Now they're saying his promos were just different. Before, it was the dumbest, stupidest thing ever. So I'm totally on his side as far as being pissed about that DVD. Crazy speech. He said something about Triple H, calling him an asshole, and he's like, oh yeah, how much did you learn from this asshole in 5 minutes? No. He went on and on. He said something about how they should put the F back in to WWE. I can't believe they lost to the Wildlife Fund. He kept going on and on. Craziness. And they let him go on because he was the last act. So again, this Hall of Fame was something to talk about, clearly. That's why I wanted to get my thoughts out. Anyways, guys, WrestleMania is tonight, and I cannot wait. Clearly, the recent news of Stone Cold Steve Austin being there, you can't get bigger than that. The rumors about CM Punk, I don't know how true they are, but I'll just look forward to Stone Cold Steve Austin because I know for a fact that that's happening. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of the Hall of Fame? Just how crazy was it? Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. See ya!